Let's stay with this particular story now and speak to reputation management specialist Dominik Heil, as well as Old Mutual head of financial education, John Manyike, who are joining us on the line now. Thank you so much to you both for your time. Dominik, I'm going to start with you. How much of damage would you say has been done to Old Mutual's reputation given the storm that we saw on Axe?
Well, as the commentator just said, we will have to see what the long-term reputational damage is. And I suppose for the most part, this will depend on whether this incident reveals a deeper truth about the company or whether this is just an isolated incident that, that people will understand. Sometimes something goes wrong and it hopefully will be resolved and that would then be the end of the matter.
And John, I know that earlier on in the day, we saw, of course, Old Mutual speaking from a different vantage point, and you are talking about, some of the challenges that, your own customers could then be faced with, especially when it comes to some of the claims not being paid out. What happens in that particular regard? Let's start right there. What could be the cause of some of the delays, in particular to some of the cases that we've seen?
Look, there are a number of reasons that could actually cause a delay in settling claims. For example, and again, I'm talking broadly and in general, that things like incomplete documentation, because you have to appreciate that the fact that financial institutions have to process claims based on the information that is available to them. There may be other things like waiting periods in the case of funeral claims. In the case of pension funds, it becomes quite complex because it's not about filing a claim and then tomorrow you walk out with a payment. There are quite a number of processes to be followed, including the tax implications, in relation to monies that have to be paid. You also have to take into account the beneficiaries that are nominated on pension funds. The trustees of a pension fund are obliged to have a fiduciary duty to investigate who the true beneficiaries are. And they've got a specific period in which they need to satisfy themselves that they've got all the details of the relevant beneficiaries. So there are a lot of things that I play, which unfortunately the public may not be privy to, and which highlights the role of financial education.
Does that play a role as well, even if there's a court order? Because in one of the cases, there wasn't a court order and the family was expecting that things would be clear going forward.
You see, the problem is that in the public domain, once people hear that there's a court order involved, without even the full details as to when does the court order being issued, and secondly, what was the detail contained in the court order, people then just assume that a specific company has defied the court order, which might not necessarily be the case. I think when you look at this matter, you'd also appreciate that Old Mutual is a listed company and a licensed financial institutions. You are limited in terms of to what extent you can engage with the public on personal financial matters of a customer. So you have to preserve the confidentiality of every single customer, regardless of how delicate the situation may be or how maybe it's a matter that's trending on social media. You have to respect the confidentiality, which actually does not really put all the parties on equal footing, because you have to respect the rule of law and the confidentiality. You can't disclose certain things which we are privy to.
Dominik, speaking about trending matters, I remember in 2019 a video circulating on social media at the time where a KZN family dropping off their dead relative's body at the Old Mutual offices in order for the insurer to pay out their funeral policy claims. We saw, of course, some of the users on social media referring back to that matter since this particular storm has now arisen again, and some of them even saying that they've had very, very bad experiences with this particular insurer. How seriously does the company need to be taking what is being said on social media about it?
Well, it needs to take it very seriously, because obviously this is about the product that the organization is selling, and that's at the core of the of the organization. So from a strategic point of view, this is clearly an important issue. I suppose the question in that kind of a crisis is whether Old Mutual is trying to play it safe and legalistic, or whether it takes the opportunity to demonstrate its values. And now we can see whether those values are being taken seriously or whether they are just propaganda. And what most people in comms departments misunderstand is that these reputation crises are actually a huge opportunity, because now the spotlight is on and everyone's looking, and Old Mutual will either rise to the occasion or not.
And how do they do that, Dominik? Pardon me for coming in there. How do they do that then to, in your view, do what you're saying, to either rise to the occasion? How do they even begin to do that?
Well, I would dig out the value statement of the organization and say, if these are the values that I'm living by, what should I be doing now? Not hide too much behind legalese. Of course, there are legal realities here that in some way play a role, and therefore it's not for us right now to pass a final judgment on this situation, because we don't know everything, as also John indicated. So it's not for us now to say, oh, this was a good or a bad response. Just to say the place to come from is this is an opportunity for Old Mutual to demonstrate its values.
And John, I know you don't speak obviously on behalf of the company, but let's talk about what Dominik just said right now, that hiding behind legalese also further compounds matters. And you just said yourself that the public may not be aware of some of the information here and may not be aware of some of, the clauses in some of the policies. So does the company then take responsibility as well as to the turn of events, particularly when it comes to information? And how do you begin then to map a way forward and rise to the occasion, as Dominik is suggesting?
Yeah, look, the company has certainly taken the responsibility to address all the concerns that have been raised by our customers. And I'm not referring only specifically to this Molefe matter, but generally, I mean, when you listen, a customer complaint is a gift. So when a customer complains, you have to invest all your efforts in improving your service levels. I think there is certainly other ways which we believe Old Mutual can also respond to this kind of crisis. For example, we certainly need to ramp up our efforts in educating our customers about processes, about policies, because the reality is when people receive their policy document, they don't read the policy wording. I mean, there's this thing that, everything should be in order. And then come claim stage, and then that's where the wording of the policy becomes very crucial. And that's why a relationship with a financial advisor is very important. But we're certainly looking at that as Old Mutual, and we have to ramp up financial education efforts, because when you have an informed customer, I think they will engage a lot more better when dealing with issues like this. And I think, very often when there's misinformation, and you are limited or restricted from responding in a particular way and without going, because you cannot go into details. And unfortunately, those are the legal realities that any financial institution has to deal with. So,
John, we're out of time, but I have to ask you this. I mean, you talk about the fact that customers need to be armed with information, and some of them don't even, are not aware or don't read some of the fine print. But is that not the role then of the financial advisor? Because as much as the financial advisor is there to try and help you, are they then not failing in their duty if they're not explaining the processes word for word, the clauses word for the customers, so that at the end of the day, you have a customer who understands all the clauses? Because it sounds to me like for them, it's all about making the money.
Well, we have a very well-trained financial advisor, very experienced financial advisor who understand their duties as financial advisors, and they certainly play their part. But I mean, financial advisors, as much as they play their role, but there are other role players, like I mentioned, financial education. We have quite a number of initiatives to raise awareness, to make sure that we promote financial education and awareness. And I think that's where we need to focus a lot more on, because even if a financial advisor may have explained something to a customer 5 years ago, you cannot expect a customer to remember. That's why a continuous engagement is going to be very critical.
And John, in about 10 seconds, does that help at all? Because for me, if it really rings alarm bells if I mean a customer is not aware of what they are signing word for word, and they don't have that continuous engagement, even as we speak right now. It's something that is still being thought about.
Look, I don't think it's one of those cases where one can just take a blanket approach and assume that it's the case with every single customer. Customers are different. There are different levels of financial understanding and awareness. But all I'm saying is that over and above that, we have a role to play in terms of educating our customers beyond beyond perhaps what we're doing currently, because this highlights the need for financial education. It highlights the financial education gap that is there. And I think that is the reality, not only on Mutual, but in the market broadly.
All right, let me thank you both for your time. Thank you so much. And Dominik, as you say, we will see in time as to whether or not, there has been extensive damage that has been done here, and how does then the company begin to rise, as you say, to this occasion. But let me thank you both for your time. Do appreciate it. That was Reputation Management Specialist Dominik Heil and Old Mutual's John Manyike.